Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you a question right at the start. Have you ever looked at somebody else's life, somebody else's success, and thought to yourself, man, I wish that was me? We've all done it. But here's the truth I want to deposit into your spirit today. Your journey is yours. And until you embrace that fact, you'll always live in the shadow of someone else's story instead of walking boldly in your own. Imagine this for a moment. You're standing in front of a mirror, and instead of seeing yourself, you see a collage of everyone else's life. Their success, their highlights, their breakthroughs. You see their awards, their cars, their businesses, their relationships, their vacations, all stitched together. And as you stare at it, you don't see you at all. That's exactly what happens when you live in comparison. You lose yourself in the reflection of others, and the tragedy is this: you can never become the person you were created to be as long as you're trying to measure up to someone else's journey. Stop comparing, start becoming. That's not just a catchy phrase, it's a life-altering principle. Because comparison steals your energy, it hijacks your joy, and it paralyzes your potential. Here's the thing: comparison is deceptive. On the surface, it looks like motivation because you say, if they can do it, maybe I can too. But underneath, it becomes a silent prison. Why? Because instead of unlocking action, it locks you into self-doubt. You start questioning your worth, your gifts, your timing. You start thinking, I'm too late, I'm not ready, I don't have enough. But the truth is, what you have right now is enough to get started. Your life doesn't require their tools, their stage, or their opportunities to begin. The seed of greatness in your life doesn't need another man's soil to grow. It needs you to plant it in your own ground. Let me drop a hook right here. The fastest way to kill your destiny is to compare it to someone else's timeline. Just because they bought a house at 30 doesn't mean you're behind. Just because they built $1 million business at 25 doesn't mean your future is over. Just because they're celebrated today doesn't mean your time won't come tomorrow. Everyone's race is different. Everyone's pace is unique, and everyone's assignment is tailor-made. God didn't put you on earth to be a duplicate. He put you here to be an original. And the moment you recognize that, the chains of comparison break and the power of becoming gets released. Now think about this: when a diamond is being formed deep in the earth, it doesn't look over at the gold and say, I wish I could shine like that. When the eagle is learning to fly, it doesn't look at the lion and say, I wish I had his roar. Why? Because the diamond knows its brilliance is different, and the eagle knows its wings are designed for the sky. Likewise, your design is different, your gifts are different, your story is different, and that difference is not a weakness, it's your greatest advantage. You can't become the best version of yourself while trying to be a carbon copy of somebody else. Here's another hook to hold on to. Success borrowed is success wasted. If you climb someone else's mountain, you may reach the top, but the view won't satisfy you because it wasn't your mountain to climb. Fulfillment doesn't come from imitation, it comes from authenticity. When you stop comparing and start becoming, you ignite the power of authenticity, and authenticity always attracts opportunity. People don't want a watered down version of someone else. They want the full expression of you. So how do you start becoming? You start by shifting the question. Instead of asking, Why can't I be like them? You ask, who am I becoming today that my future self will thank me for? Instead of looking outward for validation, you look inward for growth. Instead of chasing their timeline, you embrace your own. Becoming is about progress, not perfection. It's about moving forward one faithful step at a time, even if nobody else sees it, even if nobody else claps for it, even if it doesn't look glamorous yet. Because becoming is not about impressing, it's about transforming. And here's the promise. If you stop comparing and you focus on becoming, there will come a day when you look back and realize that everything you thought disqualified you was actually the very thing God used to qualify you. The struggles, the delays, the differences, they weren't setbacks, they were setups. They were chiseling away everything that didn't belong so that the real you could emerge. So today, let this truth sink deep. Your best life doesn't start when you look like them. Your best life starts when you decide to become the fullest, truest version of yourself. Picture this: two athletes step onto a track, both strong, both fast, both determined. The starter's gun fires, and instead of focusing on his lane, one runner keeps glancing sideways, trying to measure his stride against the other. With every glance, he loses momentum. His steps grow sloppy, and eventually he stumbles. Why? Because you cannot win your race while running in someone else's lane. That's not just about athletics, it's about life. Your lane is where the victory lies. The race you're designed to win isn't determined by someone else's path, someone else's pace, or someone else's position. It's determined by the lane you've been assigned. And when you stay faithful in that lane, victory becomes inevitable. Here's the reality: distraction is the silent killer of destiny. Every time you look to the left or to the right, you dilute your focus. And when focus is diluted, results are delayed. So many people are exhausted not because they're working too hard, but because they're running in too many directions. They're trying to juggle their own purpose with somebody else's plan, and in the process, they're draining the energy that should be propelling them forward. Divided focus creates a divided life, and a divided life produces divided results. But when you fix your eyes on your lane, you align your energy, your effort, and your expectation, and that's when momentum builds. Let me give you a hook you can't forget. Clarity comes when you stop chasing every race and start committing to your race. That means you stop trying to live out someone else's vision of success. It means you stop believing the lie that their path is better, that their lane is easier, or that their journey is more glamorous. Because here's the truth: if you stepped into their lane, you wouldn't survive the obstacles designed for them. And if they stepped into yours, they couldn't handle the challenges designed for you. Every lane has its own hurdles, its own lessons, its own timing. And every victory is hidden in the lane where you were meant to run. Think about the power of lanes. A river flows with force not because water is everywhere, but because water is confined to a channel. That channel creates direction, and direction creates momentum. The same is true for your life. Without a lane, your energy leaks into everything and produces nothing. With a lane, your energy is channeled into purpose, and purpose always produces progress. That's why staying in your lane isn't limiting, it's liberating. It frees you from unnecessary competition. It protects you from unnecessary distractions, and it positions you for unstoppable growth. Here's another hook worth writing down. The finish line doesn't exist outside your lane. You can run as hard as you want. You can hustle as much as you want. You can grind all day long. But if you're not running in your lane, you'll never cross the finish line that was meant for you. Too many people are chasing trophies that don't belong to them, climbing ladders that lean against the wrong wall, and fighting battles that don't advance their destiny. But when you run in your lane, every step matters, every lesson counts, and every victory is aligned with your purpose. Now let's bring it closer to home. Some of you have been frustrated, wondering why your progress feels slow. But what if it's not about speed? What if it's about alignment? Because success isn't about being the fastest. It's about being the most faithful. It's about showing up consistently in your lane, even when nobody's watching, even when applause is silent, even when it feels like nothing is moving. That quiet faithfulness builds a foundation that no one can shake. The one who stays in their lane, no matter how long it takes, will eventually pass those who keep wandering. And here's the beauty of it, Ty. When you master your lane, you don't just win, you inspire. People watching from the sidelines may see your victories, but what really changes them is your consistency, your focus, your refusal to drift. Because success is not just about what you achieve. It's about who you become by staying the course. The lane you're in isn't just shaping your outcome, it's shaping your character. And character always outlasts achievement. So remember this, you cannot control their lane, you cannot control their pace, but you can control your lane and your pace. And if you remain faithful where you are, your lane will lead you exactly where you're supposed to be with a victory that no one can take away from you. Imagine holding a seed in your hand. To most people, it looks small, insignificant, even powerless. But within that seed lies the potential for a tree that can provide shade, fruit, and even shelter for generations. The difference between the seed and the tree is not what it contains. It's how it's cultivated. That's exactly how life works. What you have right now might look small, it might look ordinary, it might look like it's not enough. But the truth is, what you have is enough to begin building the life you've been called to live. The question is not whether you have enough. The question is whether you will use what you already have. The challenge for many people is that they're waiting for more money, more resources, more connections, more confidence. They say, once I get more, then I'll start. But that's not how progress works. Progress doesn't start with abundance. It starts with stewardship. If you cannot maximize the little you have today, what makes you believe you'll maximize the abundance you want tomorrow? More never changes you. It only amplifies who you already are. If you are faithful with little, little grows. If you waste the little, more won't make a difference. So stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting for the stars to align. Stop waiting for more. What you have is enough if you are willing to move with it. Here's a hook that will shift your perspective. God never asks you to start with what you don't have. He only asks you to start with what's already in your hand. When Moses doubted himself, thinking he wasn't qualified, God asked him one question. What's in your hand? A simple staff. And with that staff, nations were delivered, seas were parted, and history was changed. It wasn't about what he lacked. It was about what he already had. The same is true for you. The gift inside you, the skill you carry, the experience you've lived, the resource you're overlooking, that is enough to ignite the breakthrough you're waiting on. Think about it. The greatest businesses didn't start with unlimited resources. They started in garages, in basements, on kitchen tables. The greatest ideas didn't begin with massive budgets. They began with vision, determination, and the willingness to act on what was available. The greatest transformations didn't happen because someone had everything. They happened because someone decided to do something with the little they had. That's the power of using what's in your hand. And here's another hook. The gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't more, it's movement. What holds most people back is not the lack of resources, it's the lack of resourcefulness. The truth is, every single one of us has something. You may have time, you may have skill, you may have creativity, you may have relationships, you may have experience, you may even have the lessons from your failures. Every one of those is a seed, but if you refuse to plant them because you think they're not enough, you will never see the harvest. The seed in your hand looks small, but once you put it in the ground and nurture it, it multiplies. The problem isn't what you have, it's what you're doing with it. Let me remind you of this powerful truth. Greatness never comes from waiting. It comes from starting. And when you start with what you have, you unlock the hidden potential in your life. Don't despise the small beginnings, because today's small beginning is tomorrow's great achievement. Your job is not to question whether it's enough. Your job is to act, to move, to build, to invest, to plant. When you do that, what you have begins to multiply, and before you know it, what felt insufficient becomes more than enough. So stop underestimating yourself. Stop dismissing your gifts. Stop telling yourself you need more to begin. What you have right now, your skills, your resources, your experiences, your lessons, is not just enough, it's the very foundation upon which your future will be built. Don't let the lie of insufficiency keep you from taking the first step, because once you step out, you'll realize that you were carrying more than enough all along. Life has a way of throwing punches when you least expect it. You're moving forward, you're building momentum, you're starting to believe that things are finally lining up. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, something knocks you flat. A deal falls through. A relationship breaks apart. A plan you worked on for months crumbles in front of your eyes. In that moment, it feels like failure. It feels like rejection. It feels like the end of everything you've been working for. But let me tell you something that can change the way you look at every hardship you face. Setbacks are not the end. Setbacks are setups. What you think is breaking you is actually building you. What looks like a dead end is often the very detour that puts you on the right path. Here's the truth. No one who has ever done anything significant has done it without setbacks. Every champion has scars. Every success story has a struggle. Every victory has a valley. The people you admire didn't get there because everything was easy. They got there because when life knocked them down, they learned how to stand back up. The difference between those who quit and those who win isn't the size of the setback, it's the perspective they bring to it. And here's the hook: failure is never final unless you decide to stop moving. Think about this. When an archer pulls back the string, it looks like the arrow is moving backward. But that backward motion is only building tension for a stronger release. That's exactly what a setback is. It feels like you're being pulled back, like you're losing ground, like you're falling behind. But in reality, that pullback is creating power. The greater the tension, the greater the launch. And when life finally releases you, you're propelled farther than you ever imagined. The backward motion was never punishment. It was preparation. Sometimes the delay you despise is the training you need. If everything happened instantly, you would not develop the strength to sustain it. If every door opened easily, you wouldn't learn the resilience to walk through it with confidence. If every plan worked on the first try, you wouldn't build the creativity to find solutions when things go wrong. The resistance, the hardship, the frustration, it's all part of the preparation. The process is shaping you, stretching you, refining you into someone who can handle the blessing when it arrives. Here's another hook to carry with you. The obstacle is not in your way. The obstacle is your way. That challenge is not blocking your destiny. It's building the muscles you need to step into it. Every disappointment carries a lesson. Every failure contains wisdom. And every setback hides an opportunity. But you'll never see it if you're too busy feeling sorry for yourself. Perspective is everything. You can see the setback as the reason you quit, or you can see it as the reason you grow. The choice is always yours. And think about this many times. The very thing you thought was the end turned out to be the beginning of something better. You didn't get the job you wanted, but it opened the door for a career you love. The relationship you thought would last forever ended, but it cleared space for one that truly supports your purpose. The business deal collapsed, but in the rubble you found the idea that changed your life. What looked like a breakdown was actually a breakthrough in disguise. So the next time life knocks you down, don't stay on the ground and curse the setback. Instead, ask yourself, what is this preparing me for? Because if you change the question, you change the outcome. Instead of asking, why me? Start asking, what now? Instead of saying, this ruined me, start declaring, this is building me. The story isn't over just because you're in a chapter you don't like. The best pages are still being written, and sometimes it takes a plot twist to set up the climax of your story. So remember this, setbacks aren't signals of failure, they're signs of preparation. They're not there to push you out. They're there to pull greatness out of you. And if you're willing to see them as setups instead of shutdowns, you'll discover that every fall was only positioning you for a higher rise. There's a powerful shift that happens the moment you decide to take full ownership of your life. Until then, you will always feel like a passenger, like circumstances are steering you, like other people's decisions control your direction. But when you embrace ownership, you move from passenger to driver. You step into the authority of your own journey, and clarity begins to show up in ways it never has before. Ownership creates clarity, and clarity is what gives power to your decisions, your vision, and your future. The reason so many people feel stuck is not because they don't have opportunities, but because they've given away responsibility. They blame the economy, they blame their boss, they blame their parents, they blame the government, they even blame timing. But here's the truth, as long as blame lives in your vocabulary, clarity will stay out of your life because blame keeps your focus outward while ownership shifts your focus inward. And clarity is born when you ask, what can I do? What steps can I take? What's in my control right now? That shift changes everything, because when you stop waiting for others to move, you begin to move yourself. Here's the hook: you cannot change what you will not own. If you don't own your choices, you can't change your outcomes. If you don't own your habits, you can't change your results. If you don't own your perspective, you can't change your reality. Ownership is not about guilt. It's about power. It's not about shaming yourself for the mistakes you've made. It's about empowering yourself to make new decisions that lead to new results. When you own the problem, you also own the power to create the solution. Think about driving a car in thick fog. You can't see far ahead, and it feels unsafe to move forward. That's what life feels like when you don't take ownership. It's all foggy, confusing, and overwhelming. But the moment you turn on the high beams of responsibility, clarity starts cutting through the fog. You may not see the entire highway, but you can see the next step, and that's enough to keep moving. Ownership doesn't always reveal the entire picture, but it reveals enough for you to take action with confidence. Sometimes the lack of clarity people feel is really just the weight of excuses. Every excuse clouds your vision, but every act of responsibility clears it. If you tell yourself, I can't because of them, your focus shifts to obstacles. If you tell yourself, I can because of me, your focus shifts to solutions. And clarity always follows focus. That's why the most successful people aren't the ones with the fewest challenges, but the ones with the strongest ownership. They've trained themselves to stop asking, who can I blame? And start asking, what can I build? Here's another hook worth holding on to. Excuses are expensive, but ownership is profitable. Every excuse you make costs you time, costs you energy, costs you opportunities. Ownership, on the other hand, pays dividends. It multiplies your growth, it strengthens your confidence, it expands your influence. The more you own, the clearer life becomes, and the clearer life becomes, the faster you move toward your destiny. Think about it. Clarity is not just about vision, it's about decisions. When you know you are responsible, you stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop hesitating because you realize hesitation is just another form of surrender. Ownership pushes you to act, even if conditions aren't perfect, even if resources aren't abundant, even if fear is still whispering in your ear. Because when you own your life, you stop waiting for certainty and you start creating certainty through action. And here's the beauty of it: ownership is contagious. When you step into full responsibility, others begin to follow your lead. Your clarity becomes their inspiration. Your discipline becomes their example. Your ownership creates a ripple effect that extends beyond your life. And in that ripple, you don't just find clarity for yourself, you become a source of clarity for those watching you. So understand this: clarity doesn't come by accident. It comes by ownership. The moment you decide that your future depends on you, not the market, not the economy, not the family you came from, that's the moment your vision sharpens, your focus strengthens, and your path becomes clear. And the more you own, the more doors open, because the world doesn't respond to excuses. It responds to ownership. There's something powerful about walking fully in your own journey. At first, it feels like it's only about you, your growth, your goals, your progress. But the moment you begin to move boldly in your path, you realize something deeper. Your journey inspires others. People are always watching, not necessarily with judgment, but with curiosity. They're wondering, if they can do it, maybe I can too. And whether you know it or not, your courage becomes a blueprint for someone else's breakthrough. This is why shrinking back serves no one. Every time you downplay your gifts, every time you hide your potential, every time you silence your voice out of fear of what others will think, you're not only limiting yourself, you're robbing someone else of the inspiration they need to step into their purpose. The world doesn't need another imitation. The world needs your authenticity, because when you show up as the truest version of yourself, you give others permission to do the same. That's the ripple effect of courage. Here's a hook to anchor in your spirit. Your testimony is someone else's survival guide. The challenges you've walked through, the lessons you've learned, the victories you've earned, those aren't just for you. They're for the person coming behind you who needs proof that it's possible. Sometimes the pain you overcame yesterday becomes the story that gives someone hope today. Sometimes the very breakthrough you think is small becomes the exact encouragement someone else has been praying for. And sometimes the act of you simply staying consistent inspires someone else to keep going when they feel like quitting. Think about this. People are motivated by results, but they are transformed by examples. Results show them what's possible, but examples show them how to endure the process. When you continue walking your journey despite obstacles, others learn that they can do the same. When you choose to rise again after falling, someone else learns that failure is not final. When you stay disciplined in the dark, someone else learns that preparation always leads to light. Your life preaches louder than your words ever could. The beauty of this truth is that you don't have to be perfect to inspire. You only have to be real. Too many people disqualify themselves because they think, I'm not there yet. I don't have it all figured out. I've made too many mistakes. But let me give you this hook. People aren't inspired by perfection. They're inspired by progress. They want to see the messy, the raw, the honest version of you that keeps moving forward anyway. Your imperfections don't make you less inspiring. They make you more relatable. And relatability is what connects people to your story. Your journey is not just about achievement, it's about impact. Every step you take is bigger than you. When you build discipline, someone else learns the value of consistency. When you pursue growth, someone else believes in their ability to change. When you walk in faith, someone else finds courage to trust. The way you live today sets a standard for how someone else will live tomorrow. Your journey might be personal, but its influence is public. And let me remind you of this: leadership is not about titles, it's about influence. You don't have to stand on a stage or hold a position to be a leader. If your journey inspires one person to dream bigger, to fight harder, to believe again, then you've already stepped into leadership. The light you carry is not meant to be hidden under fear. It's meant to shine in a way that guides others out of their darkness. So as you keep moving forward, remember that you are carrying more than just your own destiny. You are carrying the hope of those watching you. You are carrying the faith of those who need to see that it can be done. And you are carrying the proof that when someone stays faithful to their journey, it doesn't just change their life, it changes lives around them. your courage, your perseverance, your authenticity, they all serve as sparks that ignite fires in others. And one person's fire can set entire generations ablaze.